יש לי דיליי, אני בג'טלג, היה לי אוברווייט, קניתי הנבג, כתבתי מיילים, הוספתי JPEG, אני לא בפוקוס, תוסיף לי השטג, סווג. אומייגאד, שפה קשה, העברית החדשה, אני לא מבין את המבטא, דבר אל העברית בבקשה.
We all didn't know we were getting a DJ tonight as well as fun workshop this evening. It is very nice to connect so many faces to names. It is very nice to meet you. For those of you who don't know, we got someone adding in. For those of you who don't know, I am Dustin Hausner. I am the new manager of Synagogue Leadership Initiative through the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey, supported by the Henry and Marilyn Tal Foundation. And of course, I'm here very fortunately with my colleagues, Rachel and Cheryl, who are on, and we have people jumping in. Fantastic. So we'll be starting in a few moments. I do want to give an opportunity for some of your colleagues to join in. And here we go. And we have people coming in, but you're in for a real treat this evening. This is going to be a very informative conversation, and then we will speak at the very end about the consulting opportunity. So it should be an excellent program this evening. And if you want to, fantastic. Well, thank you for saying hello. If anyone else too, we'll have time later on, but I do think it is time, especially since some people are on a time crunch, to get started. So without further ado, Rabbi Paskin, I toss it over to you, please.
Hi, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Can you all hear me okay? Do I sound okay? Yes. Beautiful, fantastic. All right. I'm really, really happy to see all of you here. And I want to share with you a little Torah before we start, if that's okay. So I want to start by talking about Olam Haba, which is commonly known as the world to come, right? But here's the problem. We imagine Olam Haba as this future, right? The next world, a world of perfection and peace that's going to come after this broken world runs its course. Well, here's the problem. The problem is that the phrase Olam Haba is in the present tense. It means the world that is coming. If I see someone walking toward me, coming toward me, I would say in Hebrew, hu ba, or hi ba'a, right? She's coming, he's coming. It's the same word. I'm not anticipating that the person is going to come sometime in the future. I can actually see them coming right now, coming toward me. The implication is not that this new world is somewhere far off in the distance, but it's actually right here, coming right now. We're already well on the path toward Olam Haba. We're not imagining the arrival of the world to come. We're watching it approach step by step. And there's a lot to do as we prepare to welcome her, and we don't have a lot of time. And our challenge at this juncture is to do the work of getting ready for the future by acknowledging three things: what has sustained us in the past, asking the right questions about where we are today, and being open to what lies ahead. And we're here today to talk together and invite you to join us on our journey of reflection and anticipation. And if you want to join us afterward, to go forward, our journey is going to be hyper-focused on your community. And it's going to navigate your leadership and your stakeholders through a process of acknowledging what has sustained your community, inquiring about where your community is today, and imagining and building a future. So what I'd like to do today is to dive just a bit deeper into these three steps and what it might look like should you choose to join us on this journey. And we're going to do this in three phases, just as we would when we're working together as a community. So the first is, what has sustained us? Well, there are two fundamental questions that I want to explore as we look back. First is, what are the tools and technologies that have helped sustain and grow our community in the past? And the second is, what can we learn from how our community and other Jewish communities have responded to change and opportunity in the past? The second question is, well, actually, before we go into the second question, let's talk a little bit about this guy, my friend here, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. one of the most famous stories of how Jews have adapted to change is the story of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Because, and you all know this story, I'm sure. I'm not teaching you any new chiddush here. I'm not teaching you anything new here. But essentially, the model of Judaism that sustained us for hundreds of years was about to disappear. It was about to go by the wayside. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he knew that. He was smart enough and futuristic enough to see that coming. And he said, you know what? We're going to recreate something. We're going to do something different. We're going to be bold. And it's going to look very different. It's going to feel very different. And it's going to scare some people. But this is the future. And so we're going to move forward. So that's where we're going to start, with what has happened in the past. The second thing we're going to look at is, where are we today? So for this, again, we have some questions. How does our world look different today than it did 5, 10, 20 years ago? Now, I know it's hard to think about that when most of us are focused on how is our world different than it was 2 years ago, but it's important to think back and forward. And second, what are Jews seeking from our Jewish community today? I would argue that this has changed, and we have had a difficult time really acknowledging that what people are looking for is different today than it was many years ago. And third, how are we, us Jews, receiving and engaging with information? Finally, what lies ahead? And again, I always start with some questions. The very nature of community and belonging has shifted. So what will community mean in the future? And how will our chevra affiliate with our community? I'm convinced that if we don't begin with an understanding of what community is going to mean in the future, then anything that we throw at the wall will not stick. Second, what tools will we use to learn and engage with Jewish ideas? And third, how can we ensure that Jewish ideas and values remain relevant to Jews? Okay, so let's look at a generic Jewish community. We're going to look at the past, the present, and the future. Let's call it our congregation. Now, we're going to start in the past. And in order to do that, I'm going to invite you to participate with me in a little exercise. So, bear with me a moment. All right, take a look, if you would, at your screen. There is a QR code. So if you have a phone handy, you can just point your camera at that QR code, or you can just go to slido.com and then put in the code Torah Tech. Slido.com and just put in the code Torah Tech. So here's my goal and what we're going to try and work on together right now. And I want you to think from your own experience. I want to invite you to think about your own community, and I want us to create a list, excuse me, a list of the tools and technologies that have helped to sustain and grow your congregation. Thank you, Rachel, so much for popping that in there. And there's a really important piece of this. I'm talking about technology, but remember, technology does not mean computer technology. Buildings are technology. Books are technologies. Pews are technology. So I want to invite you to think about all the different technologies that we have used in the past and that have sustained and helped our communities grow. This is a word cloud, so you can just go ahead and put in whatever words you're thinking about, and we'll see what people come up with. What are the tools and technologies that have helped sustain and grow Jewish communities in the past? Books, lots and lots of books. Most of mine are hidden behind doors, but lots and lots of books. What are the tools and technologies? I'm gonna pop in here myself. Thoughts. Oh, that's so beautiful. What an interesting idea to think of thoughts as a tool or technology. That's fascinating. Let me make this full screen so we can all see a little better. There we go. Oh, but now my fat face is in the way. Hold on, I'm going to turn this off. There we go. So we got books, we have podcasts, thoughts, oral food. Yeah. Someone needs to make food bigger. We need more food, I think. Food's a big one, actually. Food's a very important one. Zoom. Yep. Boy, who'd have thunk we would have said Zoom, right? I never, ever in a million years would have listed Zoom as a tool or technology that has helped sustain communities until last year. One-on-one relationships. Remind me if you're interested in that. I had a talk with a really interesting company today for one-on-one relationships in Zoom. Celebrations, community. Wow. Sunday brunches. Yeah. Love Sunday brunches. Scrolls. Scrolls as a technology. Beautiful. See what else we got here. Wonder if this will let me zoom in. Yeah, it will. There we go. I can zoom in on that. Perfect. All right. This is a great list. So we've got food. Books is the biggest. Food, one-on-one relationships, thoughts, community, celebrations. It just all moved, so now I lost it. Phone calls. Do you remember, boy, do people still do this? I haven't done this. I remember as a US wire in St. Louis, Missouri, having phone banks to call all of our members from the synagogue office. We would take over the synagogue office. We'd call all of our members to let them know about upcoming events, upcoming programs. Sermons, thoughts, scrolls, podcasts, WhatsApp. Love it. Oral traditions, Sunday brunches, celebrations, Zoom, community, phone calls. Beautiful. Amazing. All right, good. Hey, I'm just curious. Unmute if you'd like to. Did any of you use WhatsApp or Zoom, sort of the computer technology? Did any of you use those pre-pandemic? Or are these all new just after the pandemic? Feel free to unmute if you want to jump in here. I'd love to hear what you say.
I use them pre-pandemic.
Use them pre-pandemic? And in what way? Sort of how was it Zoom? Was it WhatsApp? Was it for meetings, services?
Both Zoom and WhatsApp, but for WhatsApp, it was like Torah chats or different halacha group chats or things like that.
Beautiful. Love it. Anyone else used these in the past? No? Okay. Amazing. Okay. So let me jump back in here. Oh, sorry, bear with me. There we go. All right. So our community, meaning the one that we are creating together here, it's been built on all of these things. And it's important, I think, in all of the conversations about looking forward, it's so important to look back first and to think about all the ways that we've done amazing things as Jewish communities using the tools and technologies that have been available to us. And we've certainly had to adapt and change over the years. I would argue that by and large, that change has come slowly for us. And sometimes it's come at the cost of pushing away friends. A lot of times for me, it feels like we're always tweaking around the edges, but we're never addressing the fundamental things that need to evolve. And as we talked about before, we're certainly not the first community to face change, right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he is the founder, I would argue, of congregational change. So let's think a little bit about where our congregation is today. Now, I'm going to make a few assumptions, and I want you all to correct me if I'm wrong. Today, we're seeing smaller numbers of Jews in our community engaging with our services and programs. Anyone disagree? We are all seeing smaller numbers of Jews engaging? Yes. Okay. When we ask them, they tell us that being Jewish is important to them, but they don't show it in the ways that we're used to. Are you hearing from your communities that Judaism is still important to us, but I'm not going to come to shul, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to serve on a committee, I don't want to be on the board, whatever it is, whatever our ask is. Have you tried lots of creative programming to some degree of success, but you struggle to find that magic bullet that will push the community forward? I know I did. For me, and for a number of years, it was things like what was that Shabbat program? Not Friday Night Live. Well, that was Craig Taubman's version, but Friday Night Live Shabbat. Or Rock Shabbat, Shabbat Alive, right? All those kinds of things, or the once a month family dinners. I remember when those were it. That was that's what was going to grab everyone. Membership and participation, it's shrunken. And so our budget and our fundraising have become even more important to what we do. And we know we need to grow our base, but we struggle to know how to do that. How many of you still send a monthly bulletin or a quarterly bulletin to your communities? Really? Wow. Oh, I saw one. Cheryl, was that you? Is it a monthly bulletin? Is it?
It's monthly, and we used to send it through the mail, and now it's sent through email.
I'm curious, was that a difficult shift? Because I know in our community, we're still struggling with that shift. People still want something paper to put on their coffee table.
I can't speak to that because I've been sort of out of the loop. I mean, I was president back from 2010 to 2012, and I've been sort of out of the loop in terms of decisions being made. But when I was there, it was a constant discussion about whether we should send it, through the mail or do it through email. So the discussion had been going on for a very long time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And I think that in part is one of the things that I want to work with us on, is that constant ongoing discussion with nothing actually happening, nothing meaningful actually happening. It feels like we've been discussing this for years. We've been discussing that changes are going to come. It's time to do something about it. Well, tell me if this is true for you. You've been streaming your services for 2 years now, but you continue to struggle with how to create effective, engaging, multi-access services and celebrations. People still struggling to get that down, to figure out the multi-access piece? I am. I haven't figured it out yet. I've really struggled with it. In fact, just today I did a video begging people to ask for help because we can't do this. I was at the Cantor's Assembly. They did an amazing concert for Ukraine a couple of weeks ago. It was beautiful. But there was no one managing the Zoom who knew how to manage the Zoom. And it was really, really frustrating because they weren't spotlighting the right people, or there was a screen share, or there was a mute that was off or something. It's infuriating. And it's really, really difficult to get it right. So we've had great success in the past. We kind of know where we are today, maybe even a little frustrated by where we are today. But now it's time to imagine the future. And I want to invite you to drop any preconceived notions and ignore any barriers. What I'm going to do is, in a moment, I'm going to invite you into breakout rooms. Actually, I can't invite you into breakout rooms because I'm not the host. I'm going to ask Dustin to open some breakout rooms. So while I'm talking, Dustin, if you could open, I don't know, let's do like 4 breakout rooms, if that's okay. We're just going to pair up. Let's do a pair share real quick. All right. I'm going to invite you into breakout rooms. Drop any preconceived notions that you have. Ignore any barriers. All right. And I want you to imagine what the future of our congregation community might look like. Now, here's how we're going to do this. All right. It is 5 years from today. Did any of you see the Adam Project yet on Netflix? Okay, this is like the Adam Project. Okay, we're going into the future. It is 5 years from today. Your congregation, our congregation, is the hottest thing in town. It's the hottest thing in the country. And you are being interviewed by the Jewish newspaper, I don't know, the New York Times, is that the Jewish newspaper? Whatever the Jewish newspaper is, you're being interviewed by them. And they are asking you, what makes your community so unique and so successful? So
That's
it's
a very
5
old
years.
technology, a newspaper. So the
Yeah,
people
it is.
reading it,
I
they're
probably
going
should
to
have said
be
it.
average age of 70.
I probably should have said they were interviewing there for their podcast, right?
No, that they're
So-
not going to be interested in a lot of the stuff that we're talking about.
They're interviewing you for their podcast, for their streaming show. So, but here's the trick. All right. So you're answering 5 years from now, but you need to answer it in the present tense. So as if it's happening right now. So you can't say, well, in 5 years, we're doing X, Y, and Z. Your answer has to be, well, we are doing X, Y, and Z right now. And that's why we are so successful. Okay. So the assignment is you're going to go into pairs and it's going to be like for 2 minutes, right? It's not a long time. I want you to come up with maybe 2 or 3 ways that you would answer this question. What makes your congregation so unique and successful? Answer it in the present tense, imagining what it might be 5 years from now. Maybe someone could jot those down, and then when we come back together, we'll share some of them. Does that all make sense? Beautiful. Dustin, are you able to pop us or just you can randomly split us
I'll
up?
do it right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll see you all in about 2 minutes.
Gets confusing.
All right, so everyone will be coming back shortly. So, and then we'll continue the discussion with Rabbi Paskin. But thank you for joining us, by the way.
Oh, okay, sorry. I like the phone. For some reason, the microphone on the phone, I had to go into settings and do something. And when I did it just turned it off.
It's all fine. So
the wonders of technology.
Exactly. If one thing doesn't go wrong, it'll be something else.
Right.
It happens all the time, I promise you. So if I had a nickel for every meeting. So, but happy you made the time and happy you stuck with us. So, here's everyone back in.
All right. Amazing. I just in my own little group, I heard some really amazing thoughts. I'd love to hear what other people came up with. What makes your community, your congregation so dynamic, so amazing, the tremendous success that it's become. Should I just pick on people? I don't know if there was a scribe in each group, so I'll just randomly pick on people. Cheryl, can I pick on you?
Yes, because I was the scribe.
Perfection. What you got for us?
Our group said that we are so successful because we're creating relationships between people, either taking place on social media or small groups. We said that we would be engaging with people as whole families, actually doing Jewish practices in homes, either in groups in homes or maybe, a couple of families, celebrating Shabbat at homes with others, and observing Jewish holidays, and phone calls to members every few months to see how they're doing. So it's all about building the relationships.
I heard the word home in there a million times. Isn't it? This to me is one of the most interesting things about this moment that we are finding ourselves in. For 30 years, I have been working every day to try and get Judaism into people's homes. Now I'm trying to get them out of their homes and back into synagogue. Right? We are now in this amazing moment where we have been and will get to continue to infuse Judaism, to bring Judaism into people's homes. As you said, engaging with whole families in their homes, celebrating Shabbat in their homes, celebrating Chagim, holidays in their homes. Whether we're there physically or not, they are in their homes. And I think that, at least down here where I am in Florida, one of the things that we've seen happening now is that some people got really comfortable going to shul on Zoom. They don't want to have to get in the car Saturday mornings anymore or walk to shul, depending on your level of observance. People have gotten comfortable being able to find it on YouTube or daven at Romamu or pray at Central Synagogue or learn with Craig, right? We are the Jewish world has opened up, and in our homes, we can now access it all. So your emphasis on in the home is beautiful and really interesting to me.
But it wasn't about doing it through Zoom or streaming. It was about having a small group of people together.
Yes, 100%. We have a program here called Torah to Go. We have an extra Sefer Torah, a full-size, regular Sefer Torah that we send home with a different preschool family every week. We send it home. They take the Torah home. And then either myself or the rabbi, we go over at some point. They invite a whole bunch of friends over. We open the Torah up on their dining room table. We look around it. We show it to them. They get to feel the cloth, not where the letters are, but they feel the outside of the cloth, the parchment. It's an amazing program that brings us into their homes, physically into their homes. One of the big questions that we are all going to have to face, just like Apple is going to have to face now that they have their huge, their spaceship park that they finished building right before everybody decided they didn't want to come to the office and work in the office anymore, is community bound up in our buildings? Now, we all say that it isn't. I think every community would say, oh, we're so much more than our building. But where do we put our emphasis when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to staffing, when it comes to our goals? Is it focused on the synagogue, the building, or are we comfortable saying, maybe it's not about our building? I'll tell you that where I am in the synagogue, that I'm not a congregational rabbi anymore. I did that for 20 years. God bless any of you who are. I couldn't do it anymore. I'm now just an educational rabbi. I just play with children all day, which is the most wonderful gift in the world. I have a real difference of opinion with my rabbinic colleague here. He desperately wants people back in the sanctuary. I don't care. As long as they're doing Jewish, I don't care. The sanctuary is not important to me. Now, that should not be what you feel. I don't want you to feel the way I do. But that is a question that I think we're all going to have to struggle with, is how do we balance synagogue and home, and where sacred space, where do we allow sacred space to reside? All right, sorry, I'm talking too much. Yeah, please, Rabbi.
Just related to the home thing, and that comes out of COVID for me, is because of COVID, I started to go to people's homes to do my bar mitzvah meetings with families, and I do 4 or 5 with each family teaching. It used to be they'd come and sit in my office, or they'd sit in the library. And we were doing it like outside as much as possible because of, and all that kind of thing. But also sometimes in the homes. And now even though we could meet in the building, I want to continue going to people's homes because I find there's a different sense of connection there than when people come to the temple. Maybe I'm imagining it, but because it's the same interactions, but when you're in their homes, there's a feel like you see their dog and their cat and and the other kids are there, and there's a fuller interaction in a way with the family than there would be otherwise.
That is so beautiful. That is so, so beautiful. There is a strange intimacy that we have come to appreciate, even given the distance that we've had to stay apart. What I mean by that is, I can see, for example, that Cheryl has beautiful windows and a really nice backyard, right? And I can tell that, let me see, I need to look at the name, Moishi needs to get out of the office. I mean, you have work on your whiteboard behind you. Go home, it's late. Right? Get out of your office. We have been invited into the personal lives, into the personal homes of our congregants, whether it's physically or digitally. We have all opened ourselves up, and we've been able to create, I think, in some ways, more intimate relationships. One of the things that I've heard about digital versus on-site services, online versus on-site, is that when I'm in a Zoom, I can see the rabbi's face. It's right there in my window. When I'm in the sanctuary, she's way up there, and I can't see the expression on her face, or she can't see the expression on my face, maybe even more importantly. When I'm watching online, if they point a camera at the Torah, I can actually see the Torah being read. When I'm in the sanctuary, unless I'm called up for an aliyah, I never get to see the Torah being read. I'm not at all suggesting that everything should be digital. That's not the argument. It's only to acknowledge that there have been beautiful little gifts that we have been given through this. And
may I dissent?
Oh, of course, please.
I think we're losing something with Zoom. I think we're getting lazy, and I include myself in that. And I had mentioned that in the chat room. It's hard to get people back into shul. I'm not anti-home, but that's one person, whether it's a rabbi and a family. We're missing, I think, the community together, whether it's for a particular holiday or services. We're trying to get, and I'm in the same shul with Cheryl. We're having trouble getting people back in for the minions in shul. And sometimes, frankly, even Zoom and in person, when the rabbi does come into shul, we're still not making minions, or we have to send a notice out on Zoom that we need people. Look, I'm in my 80s. I go way back. I grew up in an Orthodox shul, not that I consider myself really religious, but I care for the Jewish people, and I think we miss something by not getting together more in shul.
Bob, you're not dissenting at all. Amen v'amen. I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're absolutely right. There are trade-offs. There are absolutely trade-offs. When we are all in digital space, there is, look, just the physical touch of another human being. As a prayer leader, I can tell you that the energy is completely different in digital space than it is in physical space. If I'm in a sanctuary and there are human beings in that room with me, just that physical presence changes the energy. It changes the experience. So I think you're right, 100%. The question
I don't know about 100%, but
well, no. But I think the question that I'm interested in, Bob, is not which or, which is the right way, because there is no answer to that. It's not either or. The question I'm interested in is, number one, what do our congregants want? How do they want to engage with Jewish life? What are the methods by which they are going to find their way into Jewish learning, find their way into hitbodedut or tefillah, prayer or meditation, right? Because the way you want to do it and the way I want to do it, we get to do it, right? You and I are easy. You're going to go to shul. I'm going to go on Zoom. Easy peasy, done. We win. The question is, for all the other Jews, how do we get them either back into the building or back into the Zoom, or neither, depending on the answers to some of these questions? So, amen v'amen. Thank you so much for sharing that. Some other takeaways, some other thoughts on why your synagogue is so successful. Sarah, I know you got stuck in the waiting room, it looked like. Sorry about that. I'm glad to see you back here now. Anyone want to share? I don't want to pick on you, but Moishi or Paul or Moishi, am I right, by the way? Are you in your office?
No, this is actually my house. My office looks even worse.
All right. Now tell me something. So what from your group, what was what made it so successful, that your shul?
So the thoughts in our group were looking at trying to bridge parental involvement into children's programming, so rather than doing them as two separate wings per se. So separate adult programming and separate children's program, trying to figure out how to find joint programming, whether that's bringing the parents into the Sunday school, religious school, or how to find joint things to really try to add to the programming we're doing rather than separate and do disparaging programming.
That sounds very 1980s to me. That reminds me of, not in a bad way, in the most lovely way, that reminds me of the big move toward family education. You know, when Brandeis University and Hebrew College, they were all creating these certificates in family education. That was Sherry Kohler Fox and all these amazing educators were teaching about the importance of not just teaching the children, but teaching the parents also. We still haven't cracked that nut completely. So that's a key component, it sounds like, of the success of our congregation is that approaching the family as a unit rather than as separate constituencies and children and adults. Beautiful. Thank you. Lynn, anyone else? Do you want to share with us what makes our congregation so strong and dynamic?
Well, Moisha and I were in the same group, so that was part of it. But one other thing that was mentioned was not just the idea of engaging the family as a unit. And part of that also included, tikkun olam and different things like that. So learning experientially as a family, but also the idea of that, Zoom does not have to be a tool that we only use because we had no choice. That, to everybody's point, we found that Zoom is its own unique and wonderful tool, and it has its own place. So to find a way to continue to utilize that, for example, maybe we, have a number of different people, family groups in their homes, and there's some sort of a Zoom activity regardless for all of them during their Shabbat dinners or something like that. So like the idea of, I guess it's the 80s, like camp was brought up, like, when every table, like, I don't know, sheket bavakasha, we win, kind of thing. So, so those kinds of things. So that was pretty much what we discussed.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, it's so important to remember that a tool is a tool is a tool. It is never the answer. It is only a tool that can help us discover answers. I wanted to share something in our group, if that's okay. So I'm forgetting his name now because he had to go to Minyan. Please forgive me.
But Rabbi Stern? Rabbi Stern?
Was it
Rabbi Kenneth Stern?
I don't think so. Maybe it was. In any case, so he said that what makes our synagogue, our community, so dynamic and so fantastic is that we have 10 hours of programming every single day. 10 hours of programming every single day, starting with a morning minyan, ending with a mariv minyan, ending with an evening minyan. And these programs are both online, they're on-site, they're hybrid. People can engage in lots of different ways. It's a constant flow of learning and people coming and going and davening and learning and experiencing and sharing. That's how he described what made our synagogue so successful. It's that constant opportunity for connection. I hope I'm not putting words into his mouth, but that's what I took. Did I get, Merrill, was that kind of right?
Yes, that's exactly what he said. Yes.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything, Merrill?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No, I understand.
Wonderful. Anyone else want to bring anything in?
Well, it wasn't mentioned in our breakout, but one of the things that I really would love to see is things that aren't necessarily entirely Jewish, but gives a reason to come together. I enjoy being in a men's choir years ago, and to have something like that. I know we're not shuls are not JCCs, but if there was some organized activity that isn't necessarily, it's just you want to call it an application, an interest that somehow you can bring a bit of Yiddishkeit into it, but not necessarily the main focus. I think that would any reason. I'm remembering when we had Superstorm Sandy here and people lost power. There were reasons for the people to come to the shul, even if it was just to charge their phones. So just any reason to get, I do think that it's nice to be able to get together over Zoom, but I really think we need opportunities to come into a building or come together, whether it's in a person's home, a congregant's home, or just together in the shul, not necessarily for a worship, but for other reasons.
Paul, but I want to highlight, you said something so important, that we have to give people a reason to come in. And I think that a lot of people today don't see a reason to come in. And I think it's important for us to own that as congregational leaders. As a rabbi, I certainly bear responsibility that I haven't given people enough reason to be a part of my community, not just to come in the building, but even to just be a part of my community. Here's what I'd like to suggest, though. I'd like to suggest that while the men's choir is a lovely idea, I'd join it with you. That's not part of the answer. And here's why. Because the men's choir is a program or an activity or an idea that will work for you in your congregation and might work for me in my congregation, but it might also not work for someone else in some other congregation. What I'm interested in discovering with you is the philosophical underpinnings, the big ideas, the earth-shaking thoughts that are going to drive how we decide whether or not we should have a men's choir. The problem with the Friday night, the rock Shabbats and the Friday Night Lives, the problem with all of those is that people said, let's do this once a month. This is going to be something we're going to try it once a month. The problem is it became a program instead of a part of the culture of the community. The community wasn't the rock and roll Shabbat community. They were the community that every once in a while had a rock and roll Shabbat. And so, yes, you'd get more people to come to that special Shabbat, but eventually everyone even gets bored of rock and roll Shabbat. I'm the rock and roll rabbi and I get bored of rock and roll Shabbat. Programs cannot be the solution to the challenging questions that we're facing. They can be some of what comes out of the solution. But I want to always steer us away from, we can get more people by serving alcohol. Yeah, you probably could for a week or a month or once in a while. But is that really what people want? Are we giving them, as you said, a reason, a real reason to be a part of us? That's what I would offer with regard to that. That word reason is so powerful. Sorry, Merrill, did you want to jump in? Did I cut you off?
Yeah, I'll harken back also to the 1980s, show my age here. But I was at the time a president of a men's club in the congregation, and which was very successful, and it had a weekly breakfast, a Sunday morning lox and bagel breakfast. Now
I remember those.
You remember them?
I loved, not at your shul, at my shul, every Sunday morning.
Well, we had it once a month, but every Sunday morning is wonderful if you can do that. But the thing is that we had no more than 8 people at a table, and we had, 10, 12 tables there. And everybody had a great time. The men looked forward to it as something they could do. And they were all Jewish men. And the topics of conversation revolved around concerns of Israel or concerns of the Jewish community. You can have your conversations about how the Yankees are doing and all that stuff with any people. You don't have to have Jews around to do that. So it was a chance to get together in a Jewish environment and develop these close relationships. And all the men that came there, come the high holidays, they were there with their families and in shul, and they weren't all regular Shabbat attendees at services. Very few of them were, but it was a way to get involvement. I'm in a very small synagogue today, very, very small, and it's we don't have the membership to develop those kind of organizations. So I'm kind of out of touch of whether maybe I'm preaching to the choir here. Maybe everyone's doing that today anyway, but I'm out of touch in that regard. But I suggest that these kind of groups that you put together, it could be women's, it could be the men, it could be teenagers, it could be college students, it could be young adults. But when they get together in a group in a Jewish auspices, Jewish setting, the conversation tends to be around Jewish issues, which you wouldn't have in a non-sectarian group.
Right.
And a conversation doesn't involve so much the kinds of normal kinds of things that you would do outside of the Jewish environment.
So Merrill, let me share a couple thoughts, and then Rabbi, I see you want to jump in. I just want to share a couple thoughts. First of all, I remember those Sunday mornings. I remember the guys letting me try a little schnapps. We had gefilte fish every Sunday morning, and they always gave me a little schnapps. I was the only religious school kid that would go to the Minyan, mostly to have the schnapps, and then they would send me off to religious school. Yes, I'm all for affinity groups. I'm all for chavurot. And this is where these questions become so important, Merrill, because young people today are looking for the same thing that you appreciated back in the 80s, but they're finding it in different ways. They're not finding it in the synagogue chapel on Sunday morning. They're finding it on TikTok or on Clubhouse or at Starbucks or at the gym or wherever they're finding it. So the question is, what is that it, right? The it was not Minyan. The it was not the schnapps. The it is that connection or the conversation or the, whatever the it is.
Absolutely.
And it is a terrible, terrible mistake for us to think that young Jews aren't seeking out the same things that we have always been seeking out. They are. We just need to realize that they're not going to find it in the places that we found it. Rabbi, I'm sorry.
I'm just struggling with this, with where you're going with this and trying to figure out what to make of it exactly, because it's something that, I give a lot of thought to. We are, Judaism has always been countercultural. And, we are always looking to sustain a community that is a minority community, and that we're and looking for people to do things that are not the standard things that, Joe American does, right? And that and that includes so many aspects of who we are, but at the base of it is this identity that we have with one another as Jews, that it's sort of the sustaining bond that we have, and that's what's eroding now. And I think what we've been talking about is this need to build these relationships, but it's also because what's happening now is so profound in terms of the change in the culture and in society, that it's not just a question anymore of, are we going to keep people Jewish, like in the Jewish community, as opposed to going to other communities? It's the question of, is there community at all, right? Is there any community? And that when you say, what are people looking for? The question is, are they, like when they go on TikTok or when they go on, I don't know, because I'm not in their heads, but I suspect that these social media platforms are on some level a substitute for community that is actual relationships. But and this is the struggle for me, because are we to say, well, that's what people are doing, so that's what we got to do? Or is it that, or are we and essentially saying we can't fight that, so that's where that's what community is going to be now,
right?
When we know on a deep level that it's lacking something fundamental in terms of, and especially on the Jewish end, right? Because that it doesn't have the capacity to put people in a position to genuinely relate to each other and support each other and be there for each other in a sustaining way. It does it in a ephemeral, brief way, very dramatically, because people can respond, like you post, a death in your family, and 150 people are replying, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." But is that really community, right? What is that? And to be Jewish, I feel like we need to do more. But we have to figure out a way to help people understand that there has to be something more substantive to it.
Absolutely. No.
Maybe I'm missing. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
I don't know, because I'm old, right?
No, we're all old. Let's just get that out of the way. We're all old farts. No, here's what I would offer, Rabbi. I would say that yes, Judaism has always been countercultural, and I don't think that we want to lose that. I think that we are an Or LaGoyim for a reason. We're a light unto the nations for a reason. It's because we have insights that the rest of the world may not get in the same way that we do, and that we have a responsibility to share with the rest of the world. And because of that burden on our shoulders of being an Or LaGoyim, we have a responsibility to be countercultural. I also think, though, that there's a difference between looking away from the world and staring it down through Jewish glasses. While you were talking, I was looking for my Jewish glasses, which I can't find right now. I have 3D glasses that when you put them on, they make everything look like Jewish stars. And I use them all the time to think about our responsibility. We have a choice. We can say, that's not real community or not real enough. Our version is better. And so we're planting our feet here. Or we can say, that doesn't feel like community to us, but that's where the folks are. So we're going to put on our Jewish glasses and make sure that we transform that place into a Jewish space or a real community. And I hate to offer this, but I think that that's the approach that Chabad has taken. There was an article a couple of weeks ago that came out that Chabad has built the first meta synagogue in Facebook's metaverse. I have no interest in visiting it, but they choose to always meet people where they are, even if those spaces are not as good as davening with a minyan in a shul. They go to those spaces and they put those Jewish glasses on and they wrap you up in tefillin, because they know that if that's where you are, then the only way I can get you to where I am is to meet you more than halfway. So, Dustin, I want to get you in here. So that would be the only other thing. Sorry, can I say one other thing? My experience in digital space has not been that the community isn't as meaningful or powerful. I actually have made some incredibly deep friends in the past 2 years that I've never met in person. And I feel like I know them really well. I feel like they know me really well. We share experiences. So I think there are ways for that to happen in digital space. It's not the same. It's different. Sorry, Dustin, go ahead.
Not at all. And I think this is a wonderful and important discussion that's being had, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. It is about 7.
Oh, dear Lord, it's 7:30.
So out of respect for that, I would love you to talk about the consultation opportunity, and then
so let's do. Okay. So I want to say one thing about the exercise we just did, though. Every time I do this exercise about imagine 5 years from now, it's impossible for people. For whatever reason, we cannot imagine ourselves as being fantastic, as being great. We always come back to, well, I don't know how we'd staff it, or, right now I'm just on the board. I'm not we're such an oy vey people. We have got to lose a little bit of the oy and focus a little bit on the joy. And if you know what, fake it till you make it. That's sort of how I feel. Fake it till you make it. We are going to be the strongest, biggest, baddest, most amazing community in New Jersey. because we are going to will it into being. We have to have that mindset. We have to approach these big, overwhelming questions with a mindset of, this is our moment. This is my Yochanan ben Zakkai moment. I am going to rise to the occasion. So what we want to do from this point forward is sort of transition this pretend our community that we've been talking about into your congregation. And we want to get hyper focused on your community. Now, we could do a whole bunch of, sessions like this, and we could talk generically, but fundamentally, we want to get to know your congregation. So what are our next steps? I would offer that there are 3. We want to have 3 sessions, if you're interested, with your community. 3 sessions, 1 to focus on the past, 1 to focus on the present, 1 to focus on the future. We want to have 3 to 5 participants from your community be a part of this. I would suggest that maybe that is 1 past leader. So Merrill, you told me in our little break, I go, oh, I'm just on the board. I don't do it. You are perfect for this. You know the history of your community. You created that history, and your voice is important and valuable. So have 1 leader from the past, have a present leader, maybe a vice president or a president, and identify someone who's going to be a future leader. Maybe even invite a US Wire or a Nifty kid to be a part of it, your Nifty president or your NCSY president. Invite them to be a part of this. Let's do this together. And I also think it's very important that your rabbi or your cantor or your educator be a part of this process also. The third thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that this doesn't dray on and on and on and on. Our goal is to meet these 3 times with you by June. Now, I want to be clear. You are not going to come out of this process with a set of programs to do. That's not the goal. The goal for us is to figure out, what does community mean for our congregation? What does engagement mean for our congregation? What does partnership or membership mean for our congregation? These are the high-level questions we're going to be asking. We're going to be looking at what has been in the past, where are we today, what are our congregants looking for, how can we learn that information, and what is our vision for the future? So our goal here is really to kind of set a path that we can then begin moving down on. And if I can be supportive as we move further down that path, I'm happy to. But my goal here is to really help you ask the right questions, to think about the right technologies, both computer and otherwise, that will help you do this work, this sacred work. Is that a fair, Dustin, sort of overview of what we're thinking about here?
I think that's a good overview. The 2 other things I would just want to cover is, so just to be clear, if you choose to take advantage and apply for the consultation, you are not being foot the bill. This is something that is being financially covered through SLI, Jewish Federation of New Jersey, and of course the support of the Henry and Marilyn Tao Foundation. So oh, go ahead. Paskin, you look like you were about to say something. No. So there are 4 spots available. So 4 synagogues will be able to get this particular service. In order to be fair and to make sure everyone has the same opportunity to apply, what will happen is on Monday, I believe that is the 28th, at 10 a.m., all of you who participate in this program will get the same exact link and have the ability to register. And the first 4 who register will have the opportunity for the consultation. We wanted to give each and every one of you time to think about this, to review with whatever leadership you think would be the participants, and see if this is something that would be good for you. Personally, I think this is a great opportunity for your shul to work with a well-recognized leader who can help with whatever specific things in your synagogue that you feel need to be worked on, and could have a wonderful set of goals and accomplishments for the future. So once again, yes.
Are you going to send us all a note with that information?
Yes. So what I will do is there will be a follow-up email, which will say basically what I just said, that when The registration will be out. It will cover the expectations that was just said by Rabbi Paskin. We'll also have a fun survey that will only be a few questions to let us know how you like tonight's program. And then, of course, the Monday at 10 a.m., you will receive the registration link. We will have it open till Tuesday, 5 p.m. So that way there is a good window for those who wish to apply. We wanted to do it on Monday. So once again, you'll have an opportunity to speak to your leadership to see if this is something that you'll be able to do the 3 sessions before June and be able to take advantage of what we think is a wonderful opportunity. Are there any other questions I want to
Hey, before we do that, can I just share one last piece of Torah? Because we started with Torah. Everything we do should be about Torah. That's why we're here, right? So we started with a little Torah. I just want to end with one quick piece of Torah. So Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner is a 20th century, he's an Orthodox rabbi, and he wrote in his magnum opus, the Pachad Yitzchak. Here's what he says. He says, the truth of the matter is that the power of change is the greatest innovation after the wonder of the creation of heaven and earth. The power of change is the greatest innovation after the wonder of the creation of heaven and earth. We all know that we are partners with God in the creation of our worlds, and change is very much that work of creation. So that's what this moment, I feel, is about for us. It will not be enough for us to nibble around the edges. We as communities have to start asking the real questions, the serious questions that will help us transform ourselves into whatever we are meant to be, whatever that is. And that will probably be different for every community. So that's my little Torah for us. Sorry, questions, thoughts, funny jokes, deep insights.
All right, so seeing none,